For decades, Steve Harvey built an absolute empire on one single golden premise. He knows exactly how relationships work. He wrote the books, he hosted the talk shows, and he handed out marriage advice like candy to millions of desperate souls worldwide. But at 68 years old, the ultimate relationship guru's carefully curated kingdom just slammed into a concrete wall. The internet is currently in a state of absolute meltdown over a leaked, high-level legal filing that suggests Steve Harvey did the unthinkable. He didn't just contemplate a split. He allegedly filed for divorce immediately after a shocking, late-night discovery that changed everything. We aren't talking about a mutual quiet separation behind closed doors. This is an explosive, scorched-earth legal maneuver that has sent shockwaves straight through Hollywood and left fans completely paralyzed. What could possibly be so monumental that it forced a man who spent his entire career preaching marital endurance to pull the plug in a matter of minutes? The whispers behind the scenes are deafening. The golden couple of late-night television and high-fashion red carpets is allegedly dead in the water, and the details leaking out are pure, unadulterated chaos. Was it a betrayal of ultimate proportions, or did the ghosts of marriages past finally catch up to the multi-millionaire host? Grab your popcorn, lock your doors, and turn up the volume, because we are diving headfirst into the darkest, most scandalous chapter of Steve Harvey's life yet. The illusion of the perfect celebrity marriage is a beautiful thing until the legal paperwork leaks, and the entire facade goes up in flames. For years, the public looked at Steve and Marjorie Harvey as the ultimate blueprint for blending a family, accumulating massive wealth, and looking incredibly stylish while doing it. They flew on private jets, rented out super yachts in the south of France, and flooded our social media feeds with couture outfits that screamed old money luxury. But according to high-level industry insiders and newly circulating whisper networks, that glittering lifestyle was nothing more than a highly coordinated public relations campaign designed to hide a toxic mountain of resentment. At 68 years old, Steve Harvey was supposed to be coasting into his golden years, enjoying the fruits of his relentless decades-long hustle on daytime television, radio, and international beauty pageants. Instead, the comedic icon is reportedly locked in a secure room with a team of high-powered, predatory crisis attorneys trying to figure out how a single 24-hour window completely decimated his life. To truly understand why Steve reportedly filed those devastating papers with such frantic urgency, we have to look at the deeply problematic foundation upon which this entire relationship was built. Marjorie Bridges was never just a regular wife. She has always been a highly polarizing figure who attracted controversy like a lightning rod. Long before she was draped in Chanel and seated front row at Paris Fashion Week, the rumor mill was working overtime regarding her past marriages and her alleged taste for the finer things in life. For years, internet commentators and media outlets have openly questioned the incredibly fast timeline of how she and Steve reconnected immediately after his brutal divorce from his second wife, Mary Shackelford. The public never fully bought the narrative of a pure, innocent fairy tale romance that randomly restarted in a casino. There was always a lingering, uncomfortable suspicion that Marjorie played a much more calculated role in the destruction of Steve's previous household than anyone was willing to admit on camera. That bad reputation only intensified as Steve's net worth began to skyrocket into the hundreds of millions of dollars. As Steve worked grueling 14-hour days hosting multiple television syndications, Marjorie became famous for spending his money at an astronomical rate. Anonymous sources close to the family's inner circle have allegedly claimed that Marjorie's lifestyle costs more to maintain than a small European principality. The continuous spending sprees, the sudden acquisition of massive real estate portfolios, and the insistence on transforming her children into international high society influencers started creating severe friction behind closed doors. Friends of the comedian have whispered for years that Steve was running himself into the ground physically just to fund an insatiable lifestyle that he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. He became a prisoner of his own success, trapped on a corporate treadmill because stopping meant the luxury empire would crumble. But a bad reputation for spending money is one thing. What allegedly transpires when the cameras stop rolling is an entirely different level of scandalous behavior. For the past several months, elite Hollywood circles have been vibrating with rumors that a massive career-ending exposé was being shopped around to major media conglomerates by a disgruntled former employee of the Harvey household. This individual allegedly possessed detailed logs, security footage, and financial receipts that painted a terrifying picture of the dynamic inside the mansion. We are talking about a scenario where the public image of a loving, supportive wife was entirely inverted. The leaked details suggest an environment filled with intense manipulation, secret bank accounts, and a systematic effort to isolate Steve from his biological children from his previous marriages. The suspicion surrounding Marjorie reached an absolute fever pitch when reports surfaced that Steve's inner circle had launched a private, highly classified investigation into certain business entities registered under Marjorie's name. For a man who was famously left with only $1,700 in his bank account after his last divorce, the stakes could not possibly be higher. Steve knows exactly what it feels like to lose everything, and the terrifying realization that history was about to repeat itself supposedly sent him into a state of total panic. He realized that the woman he had spent nearly 2 decades defending against the entire world was allegedly executing a silent, clinical strategy that would leave him completely financially paralyzed. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday evening when Steve supposedly intercepted a series of encrypted communication logs that were never intended for his eyes. It wasn't just a minor disagreement about finances or an argument over a family vacation. The information contained in those files was so deeply damaging, so fundamentally deceptive, that it shattered 20 years of trust in a matter of seconds. Witnesses at the production studio where Steve was filming reported that the comedian received a phone call from his personal legal counsel, went completely pale, and immediately ordered his production staff to clear the entire room. He locked the doors, canceled his remaining tapings for the week, and refused to speak to anyone for hours as the reality of the situation set in. What makes this specific situation so incredibly volatile is the absolute speed at which Steve acted. Typically, celebrities of his stature spend months quietly negotiating a separation through mediator attorneys to ensure that the stock market and network executives don't panic. They draft carefully worded, incredibly boring press releases about how they still love and respect each other as they move forward separately. But Steve completely threw the traditional Hollywood crisis playbook into the garbage can. The sheer panic and rage generated by this specific discovery forced his hand immediately. Within hours of viewing the evidence, the paperwork was drafted, signed, and filed with a tight-lipped court clerk under a heavily obscured corporate entity name to avoid immediate journalistic detection. The media landscape is now completely flooded with frantic speculation, as paparazzi set up permanent camp outside the couple's multiple mega mansions. The irony of the entire situation is deafening. A man who built a secondary career writing New York Times best-selling books telling women exactly how to keep a man, and telling men how to protect their households, has allegedly fallen victim to the most textbook manipulation in entertainment history. The public is watching in real time, as the ultimate relationship authority figures find themselves exposed as completely clueless in their own private lives. The level of hypocrisy being highlighted by internet commentators is reaching unprecedented levels, and the backlash is starting to affect Steve's corporate partnerships. As the reality of the filing begins to settle over the entertainment industry, the real question shifting through everyone's mind is what exactly was contained in those intercepted files. The level of secrecy being maintained by Steve's legal team is intense, which only fuels the global online frenzy. When a public figure who loves to talk as much as Steve Harvey suddenly goes completely radio silent, it means the truth is so explosive that even a master communicator cannot spin it into a positive story. The silence from both camps is loud, heavy, and dripping with legal tension as the calm before the ultimate media storm takes shape. The narrative that Marjorie was a stabilizing force who saved Steve from the brink of financial ruin is officially dead and buried. Now the public is forced to look at the entire 20-year marriage through a deeply cynical lens. Every red carpet interview, every anniversary post, and every public declaration of love is being dissected by millions of amateur internet detectives looking for signs of the cracks that were secretly tearing the relationship apart. The transition from Hollywood royalty to the subjects of a massive trashy tabloid scandal happened so fast it gave the entire industry whiplash. But as the initial shock of the filing begins to wear off, the focus is rapidly shifting toward the actual mechanics of the scandal itself, and how a web of secret financial maneuvers, luxury corruption, and explosive hidden agendas managed to stay buried under the mansion floors for so long before finally exploding into the public view. The transition from Hollywood royalty to the subjects of a massive, trashy tabloid scandal happened so fast it gave the entire industry whiplash. But the true chaos was only just beginning to leak out from the shadows. The moment the news hit the mainstream, the floodgates opened to reveal a complex web of secret financial maneuvers, luxury corruption, and explosive hidden agendas that had been buried under the mansion floors for years. According to highly classified leaks from inside the financial institutions handling the family's assets, the investigation discovered a series of massive offshore bank accounts registered in remote tax havens that Steve had absolutely no knowledge of. These accounts were reportedly used to funnel millions of dollars away from Steve's primary production companies over a prolonged period. The level of sophistication involved in these transfers suggests that this was not a sudden impulse, but rather a cold, clinical, and highly organized exit strategy that had been operating right under his nose. The financial audit reportedly exposed an astronomical level of luxury corruption that completely baffled forensic accountants. Leaked documents suggest that massive amounts of capital were being washed through shell corporations under the guise of high-end fashion, consulting, and international art procurement. Millions of dollars earmarked for Steve's charitable foundations and future media investments were instead allegedly diverted to purchase untraceable luxury assets, including rare diamonds and highly exclusive European real estate titles held under anonymous trusts. The depth of this financial manipulation meant that while Steve was on stage laughing and entertaining millions on global television, his actual life savings were being systemically dismantled by the person he trusted most in the world. Public reaction to these explosive revelations was immediate, ruthless, and entirely divided. Social media platforms experienced historic traffic spikes, as millions of fans and critics began analyzing the digital footprints left behind by the couple over the years. Online commentators quickly pointed out the intense irony of a man who made hundreds of millions of dollars, advising the public on trust and commitment, being completely blindsided in his own home. Memes, video essays, and deep-dive commentary channels began pulling old clips of Steve bragging about his wife's loyalty, contrasting them against the grim reality of the current legal filings. The public perception flipped from admiration to absolute fascination with his spectacular downfall. To make matters worse, a series of explosive quotes from highly placed anonymous sources within the Harvey inner circle began hitting the major gossip blogs. One individual, who claims to have worked as a high-level personal assistant inside the Atlanta mansion for 5 years, described the household as a psychological war zone. The source stated that the dynamic was entirely dictated by an intense culture of fear, where staff members were forced to sign strict non-disclosure agreements just to hide the constant, screaming arguments over money and control. According to this insider, the image of the happy, blended family was completely manufactured for the cameras, while behind the scenes, an aggressive campaign was underway to completely eliminate Steve's biological children from any future inheritance. Another shocking quote emerged from an anonymous financial advisor, who allegedly tried to warn the comedian about the suspicious activity several years ago. The advisor claimed that whenever anyone attempted to bring up the irregular wire transfers or the bizarre real estate acquisitions happening in Europe, they were immediately terminated and threatened with severe legal action by Marjorie's personal representatives. The source stated that Steve was kept in a state of perpetual isolation, surrounded only by individuals who were directly on Marjorie's payroll. This created a highly effective information vacuum, ensuring that the multi-millionaire host remained completely oblivious to the financial trap being laid for him until it was far too late. The internet went into an even greater frenzy when a notorious digital hacker group claimed to have intercepted a series of highly volatile text messages and voice notes exchanged between Marjorie and a prominent international business tycoon. While the legitimacy of these leaked messages is still being fiercely debated by legal experts, the alleged contents paint a devastating picture of total betrayal. The text messages reportedly detail conversations about asset protection, divorce timelines, and explicit strategies on how to maximize alimony payments while completely draining Steve's corporate liquid cash reserves before he could even realize what was happening. As these leaked reports continued to dominate the news cycle, the backlash against Marjorie reached unprecedented levels of intensity. Her social media accounts were instantly flooded with hundreds of thousands of furious comments from fans accusing her of being the ultimate gold digger. The public outrage grew so severe that she was forced to completely disable her comment sections and issue a highly sterile, legally drafted statement through her public relations team, denying all allegations of financial impropriety. However, the public had already made up its mind, and the corporate brands associated with her lifestyle empire began quietly pulling her products from their digital storefronts to avoid being caught in the crossfire. The drama quickly spread to involve the couple's children, who found themselves forced to take sides in a highly public and incredibly messy family feud. Sources claim that Steve's biological children immediately rallied around their father, expressing immense relief that he had finally opened his eyes to the alleged deception. Meanwhile, Marjorie's children, whom Steve had legally adopted and spent millions of dollars supporting, reportedly went into full defense mode, attempting to scrub their social media profiles of any association with the unfolding scandal while securing their own personal financial assets. The family dynamic was completely fractured within a 24-hour window, transforming a heavily marketed symbol of family unity into an absolute disaster zone. The public also began digging into past controversies, drawing parallels between this current situation and the allegations made a decade ago by Steve's second wife, Mary Shackelford. Suddenly, old video clips of Mary warning the world about Steve and Marjorie's initial connection began trending on video platforms globally. The court of public opinion underwent a massive shift, with many users openly apologizing to Mary online, claiming that history had finally proven her wild accusations to be entirely accurate. This sudden resurgence of past trauma added an entirely new layer of complexity to the scandal, painting Steve not just as a victim of the current situation, but as a man who was finally facing the cosmic karma of his past relationship decisions. The sheer scale of the public reaction forced major television networks to hold emergency meetings regarding the future of Steve's massive media contracts. Network executives were reportedly terrified that the intense negativity surrounding the Harvey name would alienate major corporate advertisers and cause a catastrophic drop in viewership for his top-rated syndicated shows. Whispers began circulating through the industry that production companies were already drafting secret contingency plans, exploring the possibility of replacing the iconic host if the legal battle turned into a prolonged, ugly public circus that threatened their corporate bottom lines. As the financial and social structure of the Harvey empire continued to crumble under the weight of these endless leaks, the tension behind closed doors reached a critical boiling point. Steve's legal team realized that a standard, quiet divorce settlement was completely out of the question because the level of alleged financial fraud was too massive to be swept under a rug. The strategy had to shift from a private family matter to an aggressive, high-stakes legal counteroffensive designed to freeze all global assets before they could disappear forever into the dark web of offshore banking. The stage was officially set for a brutal, unrestricted legal war that would push the boundaries of Hollywood divorce history. Every single move made by Steve's legal team indicated that they were preparing to drop a massive judicial bomb on Marjorie's entire operation, aiming to completely strip her of the wealth she had allegedly spent 2 decades accumulating. The countdown had begun, and the world watched with bated breath as the focus shifted from simple public reactions to the terrifying reality of imminent legal warfare and catastrophic consequences. The countdown had begun, and the world watched with bated breath as the focus shifted from simple public reactions to the terrifying reality of imminent legal warfare and catastrophic consequences. The situation quickly escalated beyond standard family law into the territory of high-stakes corporate litigation and potential federal interference. Steve's aggressive legal team reportedly initiated a series of emergency filings aimed at freezing every single asset tied to Marjorie's numerous shell companies across multiple continents. This massive judicial maneuver completely blocked access to private bank accounts, luxury real estate holdings, and several high-end business ventures, effectively paralyzing her financial mobility overnight. The fallout immediately caught the attention of major government regulatory agencies, who began quietly looking into the irregular wire transfers and foreign bank accounts exposed in the initial leaks. Legal analysts began predicting that this wouldn't just end in a bitter divorce court settlement, but could easily trigger a massive federal probe into international tax evasion and corporate asset hiding. If the allegations regarding the diversion of charitable foundation funds proved to be accurate, both parties could find themselves facing intense scrutiny that extends far beyond the entertainment industry's gossip circles. Inside the corporate boardrooms of television networks, the panic reached an absolute fever pitch as executives realized the true gravity of the situation. rumors began leaking that high-level producers were already preparing for a potential worst-case scenario, involving Steve's immediate resignation from his flagship hosting roles. The fear of a massive advertiser boycott forced networks to issue strict ultimatums regarding his public conduct, warning that any further escalation of the public circus would result in the immediate suspension of his multi-million-dollar contracts. The ultimate media kingpin was suddenly staring down the barrel of total professional termination. The financial crisis triggered by the sudden freezing of assets sent shockwaves through the luxury industry that the family had championed for decades. High-end fashion houses in Paris and Milan reportedly began severing ties with Marjorie, quietly canceling exclusive invitations to upcoming events and removing her from elite client lists to protect their corporate images from the taint of financial corruption. The lavish lifestyle that had defined her public persona for 20 years vanished in an instant, leaving her isolated from the high society circles she had worked so hard to dominate. As the legal pressure mounted, the internal warfare within the blended family completely imploded on public platforms. The children began exchanging passive-aggressive statements through their legal representatives, turning the fight over the impending division of the massive Harvey estate into a brutal multi-front war. Biological children and adopted children became locked in a desperate struggle to protect their own individual inheritances, realizing that the complete collapse of Steve's financial empire would leave absolutely nothing for future generations. The public backlash mutated into a digital movement, with millions of users launching organized boycott campaigns against any media project associated with the Harvey name. Online petitions demanding Steve's removal from family-oriented programming gained hundreds of thousands of signatures within days, as critics argued that a man whose private life was defined by such intense deception and chaos could no longer serve as America's favorite wholesome television host. The public narrative had shifted from simple curiosity to an absolute rejection of his brand. In an effort to mitigate the catastrophic damage to his reputation, Steve's public relations team allegedly attempted to orchestrate a highly controlled, deeply emotional televised interview where he would address the scandal on his own terms. However, the plan reportedly collapsed when his legal advisors stepped in, stating that any public comment regarding the ongoing asset investigation would carry immense risk and could be used against him in a court of law. The enforced silence only made him look more guilty in the eyes of a cynical public, trapping him in a prison of his own making. The anticipation surrounding the upcoming first court hearing has reached unprecedented levels, with major news networks petitioning judges for permission to broadcast the legal proceedings live to a global audience. The world is waiting to see the definitive evidence that forced a 68-year-old entertainment icon to instantly destroy his third marriage within a matter of hours. Legal experts are calling this the most significant and potentially damaging celebrity legal battle of the decade, promising revelations that will permanently alter how the public views Hollywood power couples. Every single business venture Steve built over his 40-year career is now hanging by a single incredibly frayed thread. From his massive radio syndication to his international business partnerships in Africa and the Middle East, investors are pulling out of deals at an alarming rate, citing the massive reputational liability of the unfolding scandal. The financial safety net that Steve believed he had securely established for his retirement has been completely obliterated, forcing him to face the terrifying reality of starting over from absolute zero at an age when most people are long retired. The psychological toll of this total system collapse has reportedly left the comedian completely devastated behind closed doors. Sources close to the entertainer claim he spends his days pacing the floors of his secure compound, surrounded only by high-priced security personnel and defensive attorneys, obsessively checking the latest media updates and tracking the movement of his remaining frozen assets. The confident, booming personality that dominated global airwaves for decades has been replaced by a quiet, intensely paranoid individual who realizes his legendary legacy is being systematically erased in real time. As the final pieces of the puzzle begin to align, it is becoming abundantly clear that there is absolutely no path toward reconciliation or a quiet, peaceful resolution to this massive disaster. The bridges have been burned to ash, the legal weapons have been drawn, and both sides are fully prepared to inflict maximum damage on each other in the pursuit of financial survival and personal vindication. The grand illusion has shattered completely, leaving behind a grim, unforgiving reality that will force everyone involved to face the ultimate music. The entire entertainment landscape is bracing for the imminent impact of the first official court rulings, which are expected to reveal the true depth of the deception and permanently seal the fate of the Harvey family dynamic. There is no turning back from this point forward, and the consequences of that fateful Tuesday evening discovery will continue to reverberate through pop culture history for decades to come, serving as the ultimate cautionary tale of wealth, power, and ultimate betrayal in the highest echelons of celebrity society. The curtain has officially been pulled back, and the grand illusion of Hollywood's most untouchable power couple lies completely shattered in the public square. At 68 years old, Steve Harvey's ultimate gamble on love and loyalty has resulted in the most explosive, high-stakes legal showdown the entertainment world has ever witnessed. Now, the real question lands squarely on you. Do you think Steve Harvey made the right call by executing a ruthless, immediate filing to protect what was left of his empire? Or was this frantic, middle-of-the-night legal maneuver a massive paranoid overreaction that will permanently destroy his legendary legacy? Could Marjorie really be the clinical mastermind behind a global financial trap? Or is Steve finally facing the ultimate cosmic karma for his turbulent romantic past? The internet is deeply divided, and we want to know exactly where you stand on this unfolding Hollywood disaster. Drop your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments section below, because this narrative is shifting by the minute. If you want to stay ahead of the game and never miss an exclusive deep dive into the darkest secrets of your favorite celebrities, make sure to smash that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on all post notifications, so you are always the very first to know when the next major piece of evidence leaks. Thank you for watching, keep your eyes wide open, and we will see you in the next breaking update.